Darren Rovell from the Action Network, joined by Jay Croucher, the director of trading for PointsBet. Jay, we got a couple games to talk about, those that are attracting the eyes of the bettor. Kansas City and Vegas. You got 10.5. And, all season we've been kind of proven wrong, thinking that Patrick Mahomes was going to continue in his ways. It's been a little bit weird to see KC and red on those helmets, but they are not what they gave us the last couple of years before. How are people feeling about this game with the Chiefs a double-digit favorite?
So people are surprisingly getting right behind the Raiders, which isn't typical of a Raiders-Chiefs game in the past few years. But I think that even though Kansas City have found themselves defensively, certainly, the offense has not been explosive. If you look at Mahomes' stat lines, it's such a departure from the past few years where, he was basically at historic paces. And now, he's frequently, not throwing a touchdown, throwing under 250 yards. And I think there is that just skepticism around Kansas City's offense to lay that many points. So people are getting behind the Raiders.
So why isn't it moving down? Are you guys making a bet, trying to goad people to take the Raiders?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One, we don't think the Raiders are very good, which they've shown since Gruden departed. And then also Kansas City, despite the fact that their offense hasn't been explosive, the one game where it was against the Raiders in primetime, where Mahomes did throw for 5 touchdowns and over 400 yards. So maybe there is something about that matchup that Mahomes really likes and can get the explosive plays. And so that's why we're keeping the number where it is at the moment.
Okay, let's talk about the Washington football team against the Dallas Cowboys. WFT, only 4-point dogs. They've won and won and won and won and won. Taylor Heineke, the real deal. I mean, it seems like these guys are real all of a sudden. I couldn't imagine there'd be a game even with the Cowboys a year ago where they'd only be 4-point dogs. Are people going with recency bias?
So it's fairly split at the moment. I don't think people are fully buying into Washington. I think there is just the fear of Dallas's talent advantage, the fact that they are healthier now on offense. On defense, I've got DeMarcus Lawrence back, and Micah Parsons is someone that we think has a legitimate chance to win Defensive Player of the Year. So just the level of talent on Dallas with Washington, Taylor Heineke has been a good story, but that's still a really significant mismatch against Dak Prescott. Obviously, Chase Young is no longer there on defense. The defense hasn't been great all year. So the reason that the line is 4 is just that, we think that Dallas's talent just has to reveal itself at some point, where they haven't been consistent at all this year. They got down 30-0 in a game at home to the Broncos. They lost at home to the Raiders. They put 9 points up against the Chiefs, but still we expect that the talent just has to reveal itself at some point.
Let's talk about Tampa Bay Buffalo. Buffalo, obviously, in that game in the horrible weather against New England. Tampa Bay is also one of those teams where we know Tom Brady is good. He hasn't had all of his offensive weapons. Kind of not what we expected going into this season. So this, to me, I think is a game that people want to bet, might be the most bet game of the week, but I also think it's the most confusing.
It is definitely confusing. And I think the most confusing element is just how much do you read into Buffalo's game against New England, which is obviously a really disappointing loss. It's also in 50-mile-per-wind gusts, so it's not really something that you can extrapolate to weeks going forward. There's not going to be too many games where the opposing team throws 3 times. Now they're going from that to playing Tom Brady, who throws more than anyone else in the league. So this Buffalo team, they're really tough to figure out because, on one hand, there's the team that made the AFC title game. That's largely the same roster. The team that went into Arrowhead and destroyed Kansas City earlier this season, 38-20. And then there's also the team that seems to lose in every other big spot that they're put in this season against the Bucs team that is kind of just coasting along and doesn't have too many great scalps and does have a double-digit loss to Washington in its recent history. So it's a bit of a tough one. We think that, home field advantage is worth about 2 points these days. So we think that the Bucs are about 1.5 points better than Buffalo right now, neutral field. And so that's how we get to 3.5.
And how are people feeling on the total here?
Yeah, so the total, there is confidence that it will go over. Totals have been, this week especially, somewhat depressed, just with the weather getting colder.
Last week, the highest total I saw, I think, might have been 48.5. We have gotten into this point where totals have been, 54, 55, 55.5. It was kind of weird to see that there wasn't anything within like 6 or 7 points of what you've seen before.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that a reason for that is, one, just a lot of the offenses that we thought would be more explosive just haven't been. Kansas City have been responsible for so many of those totals, and now they're frequently scoring in the teens or the 20s. And overall, Buffalo are another team where, there was a thought that they would have a really explosive offense. It just hasn't happened. Just hasn't revealed itself.
Tennessee as well.
Tennessee as well. They lose Derrick Henry. Julio Jones will be back this week, we think, but he's been out. AJ Brown's been out. So it's just a lot of the top teams, they just haven't been scoring as explosively as they were earlier in the season. There is a chance, though, that this game, just with how suspect the defenses can be, where Buffalo missing Tre'Davious White, what do they look like against a really strong passing offense? And then Tampa Bay, despite the fact that they are getting healthier, the Carson Wentz put up 31 points on them a couple of weeks ago, and they had 5 turnovers as well and still managed to score 31. So there might be points in this game.
Jay Croucher, the director of trading for PointsBet, thanks for taking us behind the book for another week.
Thanks, Darren.
Make sure you check out all of PointsBet's promotions, including this one for Sunday Night Football.